Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the All Around Growth Podcast. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. In today's episode, we are going to talk about shelving and how you can build simple shelving for your garage, for your barn. I'm going to share with you our most recent project this past weekend here on the homestead and explain to you what we built, how we built it, and why we built it. And that's going to be it. It's going to be a very quick, brief episode today. Got a lot of work, a lot of things going on around the homestead, lots of preparations for winter markets, the candlelight walk, all of that stuff that I have alluded to and discussed in past episodes, and I will go ahead and link to that today. Again, just for your reference, so you can find out what's going on here on the homestead, what's going on around town here in Medina, and learn a little bit about our community and what is happening. So it's season 5, episode 20 of a show where you join me as I build the life and homestead of my dreams. Let's get into it. In the last episode, season 5, episode 19, we talked about renting a dumpster for a big farm cleanout and demolition. And we demoed the trailer, filled that dumpster to the brim, actually overflowing. And luckily, there was no issue with the dumpster and the way that we filled it. It was picked up last Monday, and that was it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. The dumpster is gone. The area where the trailer was is cleaned up. Everything is good to go. The trailers were moved, and Mom is happy. Period. Full stop. That's kind of what matters. This is her place, and as long as Mom is happy, most people are happy. So there you go. As we were talking about what we are going to do with the trailer frame, the idea of the chicken coop, the mobile eggmobile, was discussed, and my brother is very excited to begin working on that and modifying plans that we had for another single axle trailer that was smaller, but we're going to scale that up and build something considerably larger, and it's going to be awesome. So we're going to begin working on that, but before we can do that, we need to clean up the barn and turn that into a space that is conducive to work. And why is our barn not in that space right now? Well, it's we don't have much shelving in there. And accordingly, if you don't have a lot of shelving, stuff that could be on shelves is on the ground, and your barn turns into a mess. Your garage turns into a mess. If you don't have shelving in your garage or barn, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Things end up where they end up, and it is a mess. And that's exactly where we're at right now. So earlier in the year, my brother and I, and my brother-in-law for that matter too, Luke, we began building out a series of shelves, and we built 2 sections of them, 2 8-foot sections. And over this past weekend, we continued the shelving along one entire side of the barn, and then along the west side of the barn, and then on the north side. So we have for a little bit of context, it's a 40 by 60 barn, technically 40 by 64 foot barn. And then we've got one room on the north side of the building that serves as an office, and that is about 14, 15 feet wide. And then we've got another building built right next to that, another 14, 15 feet wide. So we have about 30-ish, 34 feet of space open in the barn. We've got the office, the commercial kitchen, and then, the walk-in cooler that is next to the kitchen and next to the office. Okay. So we've got a pretty good workshop area in the barn, and inside the barn there's also an old car. It's my dad's old car. That's another story for another time. We'll get into that later, and that might involve someone out there listening to this show right now. We'll see what happens. And if that's the case, just stay tuned for more details on what happens with Dad's old car, the 1957 Oldsmobile Super 88. It's been in the family for 50 years, and it may stay tuned for details. We'll get into that later. But yeah, like I said, so far we've got 2 sections of this 8-foot shelving, and we finished out 1, 2, basically 3 more sections of 8-foot shelving along the west wall. One section was a little bit shorter, and then 1, 2, 3, and 3.5 sections of shelving along the north wall. The shelving is really simple, okay? It involves 2x3s and 4x8 sheets of plywood, 1/2 inch, and not even 1/2 inch. I want to say it's 15, 30 seconds, if that's right. Plywood's weird, but it's thinner, but based on the way that we've constructed the shelving, it's strong enough for whatever we're putting up there, and it's strong enough to hold my weight. So it works. Okay, so here's the deal. Each shelf is 2 feet wide and 8 feet long. So we effectively take a sheet of plywood, rip it in half. And that 2 foot wide, so we've got a stack of 2 foot wide by 8 feet long sheets of plywood stacked up over in a corner. I'm getting ahead of myself. The very first thing that we did was we built the frames of the shelf, okay? And the frame of the shelf was an 8-foot section of basically a standard 8-foot 2x4, and the front and the back. So that leaves us 24 inches less 3. So we had 21-inch sections of 2x3s. Yep. 4 of those, 1 on each end, and then 2 in the middle of the 8-foot section. So those were spaced out at 31 and 3/4 inches and 61 inches, I believe, maybe 31.5 inches, and effectively splitting the 8-foot section of plywood in quarters for the supports. Okay, so we built out the frame of the shelf, not attaching the plywood to it yet, and then began attaching the plywood to the barn itself. And the reason we used 8 feet sections, and the reason why that works out so well, is that the posts of the barn, it's a simple pole barn. The posts are 6x6 posts, and they are spaced on 8-foot centers. So when the shelving is in place, it fits quite well. And we have spaced them. I don't know the exact spacing, but I think they're roughly, each shelf is about 30, 28 to 30 inches high. Forget the height. The beauty of this is you can, well, no, I can tell you, 8 feet. Split that in quarters. That's our spacing. Vertically as well as horizontally. So we've got the bracing of each shelf in quarters, and then the height of each shelf in quarters. So we've got 3 shelves, with the top shelf being at 8 feet. You guys can do the math. I'm just here to share the ideas, how we did it, and ultimately why we did it, which is the why is simple: to create additional, to take all of the real estate on the floor and have the ability to put those things on shelves to clear up the floor so we can use it for projects like building a giant eggmobile. So once we secured each individual shelf, we then installed one of 2 support beams, and then just continued down the whole way of the barn. And just ran the course. 3 layers of shelves. One at, say, knee height, one at chest height, and one above your head. 8 feet tall. Now, the shelving on the north side, we did some adjustments, didn't necessarily put in the low shelf, didn't put in the second shelf, because we're going to store some things over there like a forced air heater, a generator, a big fan, things that are going to take up some space vertically that we want to store up against the wall. So we didn't install shelving there, and we're also going to install some workbenches on that north wall. So one will be fixed bench, a woodworking bench, and then the other will be a mobile workbench that's on casters in the very corner. There's some space from the side man door. Patreon subscribers will have a more detailed, in-depth video tour of the barn and the layout, so you can see how we've configured and built out the 40 by 60 barn with a fully outfitted office, bathroom, kitchen area, front and back room that adjoins to a commercial kitchen with its own individual sub panel. How we ran the electric, how we've run the circuits, how we've done everything, and how that fits into and works with the walk-in cooler that we constructed too. Patreon subscribers will not only get a tour of all of that, but also basically some insight as to what we could have done and differently, and what we would have done differently, what we would do differently if we were to do this all again. But that's neither here nor there, because this is the current situation and set of circumstances that we're working with now. So we're doing the best with what we can. At any rate, after all the shelving was in and some of the support pieces were there, we proceeded to take those cut sheets of plywood and ensure that they were the right size. Some of them we actually had to shave off 1/8 of an inch, something like that. We were tired when we were cutting the wood and didn't quite measure properly, but when you're set up to, when you're working systematically like that, and you've got the framing in, and then you're just setting plywood, if you need to run all of the plywood, the half-cut plywood sheets through or over the table saw again onto another bench, and you've got two people doing it, you can cut, the remain however many sheets you've got in almost no time. So, in less than 10 minutes, we had run all of the sheets of plywood for the shelving through again, just to be on the safe side, so there wouldn't be anything that didn't fit. Because once you get something up there and in there and it's jammed up and it doesn't fit quite right, it's super annoying. So we just ran them all again. Most of them didn't need anything trimmed off. A couple did, and that way it just fit very smoothly. Once everything was up and in place, it was just a matter of running in 1.25 inch wood screws on each, 4 across the board lengthwise, and 1 in the middle of each cross bracing. And that was about it. When you're working with typical Home Depot wood, a lot of it is not the highest quality, especially this thinner plywood. But, for simple shelving, it worked. And I want to say that for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections of 8-foot shelving, 3 high, 8 feet high in total. That cost us about $300 in materials. We picked up a couple extra sets of bits and some screws to compensate for what we didn't already have. So all in all, we had $350 in the project and a couple days worth of labor into it. Most of the labor was from my brother. My brother just crushes it on these projects. I ended up spending Sunday morning at church. Admittedly, it did feel a little weird to leave him as he spends his time here with us. But he respects what I do, and I very much appreciate and love him for the respect that he gives me as I go about the pursuits of my spiritual life. So at any rate, I don't know if he will ever hear this, but Matt, if you do, I sincerely appreciate all of your help for everything that you contribute to the farm here and helping it grow into what it has the potential to grow into. Without you and all the help that you provide, none of this would be possible. None of this. And many thanks to your wife for supporting you and the time that you spend here. It's incredible, and I'm grateful for it. It's very humbling, and I don't know what else to say than thank you. And with that is about it, guys. If you have any questions about the shelving, feel free to let me know. Connect with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are there at All Around Growth on all of those platforms, but we are also not very active on most of those platforms. Where you can find us the most is on Telegram, t.me/allaroundgrowth. We have a larger group for the general audience, and then for those who are Patreon supporters, we have a small dedicated chat that is far more intimate, where we have a considerable amount more dialogue of a increased quality, and it is quite wonderful. So again, thank you to all of you guys who are supporters on Patreon. And if you want to learn more about what we're doing behind the scenes, then like I said, consider becoming a Patreon supporter yourself at patreon.com/allaroundgrowth. And until next time, guys, Thank you very much, and God bless.